The twin suns of Valara Prime painted the royal citadel in silver and crimson light. 1,000 alien banners fluttered in the cold wind above marble towers that stretched into the mist. Humans were rare here, and when they appeared, they were treated like fragile creatures made of glass. Elias Ward knew this truth well as he stepped through the palace gates, holding a repair case in his trembling hands. He was just an engineer from the Terran embassy, sent to fix a broken energy core in the royal wing. Nothing more, nothing less, but the moment he entered, whispers began to crawl through the halls like smoke. Guards with golden armor turned their faces away. Servants bowed in fear. They all said the same thing. Don't look at her, don't speak to her. Don't go near the princess, the alien princess. Lyrathal was more than royalty. She was a myth wrapped in silk and silence. They said she hadn't spoken a single word in years, that her presence alone could bend minds, and that no foreigner who met her eyes ever returned the same. Elias laughed nervously when he heard that. He didn't believe in curses, only in logic and tools and metal still. As he walked deeper into the crystalline corridors, he felt the air grow heavier. The walls shimmered faintly, whispering in an alien tongue. He could feel something, or someone, watching him from the higher balconies. The energy core he was assigned to repair was placed directly below the princess's private chamber. He found the broken console surrounded by alien guards who watched him like hunters. Their eyes glowed blue, their hands resting on plasma rifles. Elias gave them a polite nod and began his work. He tried to ignore their stares, the strange humming from the walls, and the heartbeat-like thrum of the royal core. Minutes passed. Sparks danced as he welded circuits and recalibrated crystal conduits. Everything was fine, until the light dimmed for a moment. When it returned, he wasn't alone. A shadow had appeared at the edge of the room, tall and still, framed by the golden light from above. Elias froze. The guards dropped to their knees, their armor clanging against the floor. He turned slowly. There she was, my Princess Lyrathal, the Forbidden One. Her long silver hair floated as if the air itself bent around her. Her skin glowed faintly with a pale luminescence. Her eyes, two orbs of violet fire, locked on him like a quiet storm. No one moved, even the air felt afraid to breathe. She took one silent step forward, and every guard lowered their head deeper. Elias wanted to step back, but his legs refused to move for a strange moment. He didn't feel fear, he felt curiosity, and something deeper. Recognition, like he had seen those eyes before. Maybe in a dream, maybe in another life. Human, one of the guards hissed under his breath. Do not speak, do not raise your eyes. But it was too late. She had already crossed the invisible line between royalty and forbidden. The princess stood beside him, the scent of strange flowers surrounding her. She looked down at the repair panel, then back at him, her lips parted but no words came. Only a faint sound, like a melody without voice. Elias blinked, unsure if he imagined it. Her hand reached out, brushing the edge of the console, and suddenly, the broken circuits lit up in brilliant blue. The entire chamber pulsed with power. The energy core roared back to life. Responding to her touch, gasps filled the room. The guards trembling in disbelief. For centuries, no one had seen her use her gift. And now she had done it, in front of a human. Elias swallowed hard. He whispered softly, "Thank you, Your Highness." The moment the words left his mouth, every alien in the room froze. A guard shouted, "Silence, human. You cannot address the princess directly." But she raised her hand slightly, stopping them. Her eyes never left Elias's face, and a faint shimmer of emotion passed through them. Sorrow, maybe longing. Then she turned and walked away without a word, her steps echoing through the crystal corridor. As she disappeared into the mist, the guards finally rose. Still pale with shock, one of them whispered, "You are lucky to be alive, human. She never allows anyone to speak to her." Elias didn't answer. He could still feel the warmth where her presence had brushed the air. Something about that encounter burned into his memory like a mark. He didn't understand it yet, but deep down, he knew this was no accident outside the palace. As the twin suns set behind the towers, the royal banners shimmered in red light, and the air felt strange, charged with destiny. The human engineer looked up toward the balcony where she had stood. He could see a faint shadow behind the veil watching him for a brief second. Her violet eyes met his again through the distance, and this time she smiled, and faintly, almost human. Everyone had told him to avoid her, but now it was already too late. Because the Princess of Valara had chosen to notice him, and in that silent choice, a story older than the stars had begun. The next morning, the palace of Valara Prime awakened under a storm of rumors. Every servant, every guard, every diplomat whispered the same impossible tale. The princess had chosen a human. No one dared to say it too loudly. But the shock rippled through the empire like a silent quake. Elias Ward had no idea what he had done. He only remembered the way her eyes met his, and the strange calm that followed. He was summoned before dawn by the royal guards. Their faces were cold, unreadable, and their weapons gleamed like shards of lightning. Elias followed them through long hallways where crystal walls shimmered with alien runes. At every corner he saw fear in the eyes of the palace staff. It was clear, something sacred had been broken, and he was the reason they brought him to the Hall of Judgment, a massive chamber filled with floating lights and a throne made of living stone. Hundreds of alien nobles sat in silence, their skin tones shifting like liquid metal. At the far end of the hall, Princess Lyrathal sat motionless. Surrounded by her council, Elias tried not to meet her gaze. But her presence was magnetic, even in silence. She commanded every breath in the room. The High Elder stood, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Human," he said. "You were warned not to approach the royal bloodline." Elias bowed his head. "I didn't approach her, she came to me." Gasps filled the hall. The elder's eyes glowed with anger. No one chooses the princess, human, not even fate itself. But before he could continue, Lyra rose from her seat. The entire council froze as if time itself stopped. Her long robe shimmered with light as she descended the stairs. Every step was slow, deliberate, filled with quiet defiance. Elias dared to look up, and once again their eyes met. This time, she raised her hand and pointed, not at the guards, but at him. Her voice came soft but clear. "He stays." The chamber fell silent. No one could believe it. The Princess of Valara had spoken, for the first time in years, and her words were to defend a human. The High Elder trembled. "Your Majesty, this is forbidden. The human must leave. It's the law." But Lyra only turned her gaze to him, her expression calm yet unbreakable. "The law," she said, "was written by those who feared what they didn't understand." Her words echoed like thunder through the hall. Elias stood frozen, unsure if he should kneel or run. The alien counselors whispered among themselves, afraid to anger their ruler. Finally, the elder bowed his head, defeated. "As you wish, Your Majesty," he said, voice trembling. "The human stays." Elias was escorted out of the hall, but this time not as a prisoner. The guards walked behind him, tense but silent. He was taken to a guest chamber decorated with floating crystals and alien fabrics that moved like living silk. As he sat alone trying to understand what had just happened, the door opened quietly. Lyra stepped in. Without guards, without fear, she approached him slowly, her glowing eyes soft but curious for the first time. He noticed the small details, the faint silver lines on her wrists, the shimmer in her hair. She spoke gently. "They fear me, human, because I do not follow their chains," Elias replied in a whisper. "Why did you choose me?" Her gaze lowered. "Because you didn't look at me with fear." The words hung in the air like fragile light. She turned toward the balcony, staring out at the twin suns rising over the horizon. "Long ago," she said, "a human saved my ancestor's life during the War of Moons." He spoke of courage, of freedom, of humanity's fire. She looked back at him. "When I saw your eyes, I saw the same fire." Elias didn't know what to say. Something inside him stirred. Pride, awe, confusion all at once. Outside, horns sounded from the lower city, a sign that a royal decree had been issued. Lyra turned sharply. "They will not stay silent," she said. "The council will try to remove you. Or worse?" Elias frowned. "Then why not let me go? I don't want you in danger." She stepped closer, her expression firm. "Because you are already part of it, whether you want it or not." She placed a small crystal in his hand, and warm, pulsing with faint blue light. "This will keep them from tracking you," she said. "Wear it and do not lose it." He nodded, his heart pounding. Her fingers brushed against his skin, a single, brief touch, but it felt like a surge of energy through his veins. In that instant, he felt connected to something vast, ancient and powerful. When she left, the chamber felt empty, almost cold. Elias stared at the glowing crystal in his hand, wondering what fate had tied him to an alien princess. He had come to fix a machine, yet somehow, he had been chosen for something far beyond his understanding. As the suns dipped below the palace walls, Shadows stretched long across the marble floors. Outside, the whispers grew louder. The princess has chosen the human, they said, and the galaxy will never be the same again. Night fell upon Valara Prime like a quiet storm. The stars above the palace glowed brighter than usual. As if watching what no one else dared to see, Elias couldn't sleep, his mind spinning with questions that had no answers. The crystal the princess gave him still pulsed softly in his palm. Matching his heartbeat, he felt something strange, as though the walls around him whispered his name. Then a knock echoed through the chamber, light and deliberate. When he opened the door, no one stood outside. Only a small mechanical orb hovered in the air, its surface glimmering like liquid metal. It projected a single beam of blue light that formed a message in alien script. Elias couldn't read it, but the translation chip in his collar flickered to life. It whispered, "Follow the light. Do not speak, do not hesitate." He followed, barefoot and cautious, through long winding halls where moonlight painted the floors silver. The palace was silent. Even the guards were gone from their usual posts. The orb led him down into an ancient corridor, one he hadn't seen before. The air was colder here, older, filled with the scent of metal and memory. At the end of the path stood a massive door covered in strange markings that pulsed when he approached. It opened with a low hum, revealing a dimly lit chamber filled with floating crystal mirrors. Each mirror reflected not his face but flashes of different worlds, alien cities, destroyed battlefields, forgotten stars, and in the center of the room, waiting, stood Princess Lyrathal. Her robe was different tonight, dark blue with threads of starlight. Her eyes glowed softly, and for the first time, she looked almost human. Elias bowed slightly, unsure if he was supposed to speak, but before he could, she gestured toward the mirrors, her voice low. "These are the memories of my ancestors," she said, "kept hidden from the Empire." Elias stepped closer, the reflection shifting as he moved. One mirror showed a fleet of ships burning across space, human ships marked with Earth's insignia. Another showed men and women in armor, standing beside alien allies, fighting something monstrous and vast. His breath caught. "These are humans," he whispered. Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, they were called the Fireborn by our kind." She walked beside him, her fingers brushing the glowing surface of a mirror. When the galaxy was drowning in war, it was humanity that turned the tide. They fought for freedom, not conquest. Her tone darkened. But their light frightened the old empires, frightened us, so the truth was buried, erased from every record. Elias stared in disbelief. "You're saying humanity saved the galaxy?" Lyra looked at him with quiet sadness, "And paid the price for it." She waved her hand, and another vision appeared. The fall of Earth, oceans boiling, the sky on fire, a lone ship escaping through the clouds carrying something precious. Lyra whispered, "That ship came here to Valara Prime, long before I was born." Elias's chest tightened. "And what did it carry?" She turned toward him, her eyes shimmering. "It carried the last flame of humanity, a code, a memory, and a single survivor." Her gaze softened. "He looked like you." Elias felt a chill crawl up his spine. "That's not possible," Lyra smiled faintly. "Maybe not in your time, but in mine." Time bends like light. The mirrors flickered, showing flashes of a man standing beside an alien queen, his hand over a glowing heart crystal. Lyra continued, "He promised my ancestor that humanity's spirit would rise again, that one day, a human would return when the stars needed them most." Her voice trembled. "When I saw you, I knew the prophecy was real." Elias shook his head, trying to process it. "I'm just an engineer, not a hero." Lyra stepped closer, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. "Heroes never think they are." A deep vibration echoed through the chamber, lights flickering wildly. She turned sharply, her expression tense. "The council knows I'm here. They've found us." The mirrors began to shatter one by one, each explosion releasing a burst of light and memory. Elias shielded his face as the room trembled. Lyra grabbed his hand, her voice urgent. "Take the crystal, keep it safe. It holds the truth about your people." As they ran through the collapsing passage, shards of history fell around them like burning stars. The orb that had guided him reappeared, leading the way back to the upper halls. Behind them, voices shouted in the alien tongue. Soldiers. Armed and furious, Lyra turned to Elias. "If they catch us, they will erase everything, even you." Elias tightened his grip on the glowing crystal. "Then we don't let them. They reached a hidden lift that rose silently toward the outer balcony. The night wind rushed against their faces as the doors opened to the starlit sky. Below, the city shimmered in blue light, unaware that history had just woken up. Lyra looked at him, her expression both fierce and gentle. "You were never supposed to be here." "Elias Ward," she said softly, "and yet, this world will remember you." He looked back at her, the crystal pulsing between them like a shared heartbeat. "I don't understand any of this," he said, "but I know I trust you." For the first time she smiled, not like a ruler, but like someone who had been lonely for far too long. And somewhere deep within the palace, the ancient code of humanity began to stir. The forgotten flame of earth flickered once more, ready to burn again. The winds howled over Valara's night horizon, carrying with them the hum of distant storm clouds. Elias stood beside Lyra on the balcony, the crystal glowing between them like a living heart below. The palace lights flickered as if the world itself sensed what was about to awaken. Lyra's voice came soft but steady. "You must see the truth before you decide what comes next." She held out her hand, the crystal lifting gently from his palm, spinning in midair. It released a beam of pure white light that formed a wide circle around them. The balcony dissolved away, and suddenly they were standing among stars, surrounded by endless darkness. Elias gasped. They weren't in the palace anymore, they were inside a vision, a memory older than both their worlds. The light shifted, forming an image of vast fleets, thousands of ships, some human, some alien, all burning across a golden nebula. Lyra spoke softly. "This was the War of Moons, the final stand of your ancestors." Elias saw humans in armor made of silver and black, wielding weapons that bent light itself. They fought alongside alien allies against monstrous forms of shadow, beings made of pure energy and rage. The sound of battle thundered around him, shaking the stars. He saw a human commander standing on the bridge of a massive ship, his eyes cold, his voice echoing, "For Earth, for every world that breathes free." Elias felt something stir inside him, a strange ache, a pull in his chest as if he remembered those words. Lyra watched him quietly. "That man was called Admiral Arden Ward," she said. Elias turned sharply. "Ward?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, he carried your name. He carried your blood." The vision shifted again, showing the moment the war ended, the human fleet surrounded by countless enemies. Outnumbered but unbroken, Admiral Ward stood on the deck of his ship. A final smile on his face, he whispered something to the crew, then pressed his hand to a console glowing with Earth's emblem. In an instant, a blinding wave of energy swept across the sky, a final weapon born of sacrifice. The shadows vanished, the stars returned, and silence filled the void. Lyra's eyes softened. Humanity won that day, but the cost was everything. Their fleets vanished, their home burned, and the survivors scattered among the stars. Elias's voice trembled. "So Earth, it really fell." She nodded. "The galaxy feared what humans could become again, so they erased your name from history." The images faded, leaving them standing under a single glowing symbol, a burning hand surrounded by stars. Lyra reached out to touch it. "This was your people's mark. The sign of fire." Elias looked at it with awe. "Why are you showing me this?" Her gaze met his, fierce and desperate. "Because they will come for you now. The council knows you carry the same spark." Thunder cracked somewhere in the distance, jolting them back into reality. The balcony reappeared, and alarms began to echo through the palace. Red lights flashed along the towers as ships rose from the lower docks. Lyra turned to him, her voice low. "You have something inside you that connects to this crystal. That's why it answered your touch." Elias frowned. "What do you mean?" She stepped closer, the wind whipping her hair across her face. "When the first humans fled to Valara, they left behind a code, a living memory sealed in bloodlines. Somewhere within your DNA, the code of Earth still burns." Elias shook his head slowly. "That's impossible." But the crystal glowed brighter in his hand, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Lyra smiled faintly. Impossible was always a human word. She turned toward the city, the glow of engines lighting up the sky. "They're sending soldiers. They will destroy you if they learn what you are." Elias clenched his fists, his fear replaced by anger. "So the same empire that humans once saved is now hunting them?" Lyra's eyes glistened. "Power always fears memory. The air trembled as the first explosion rocked the horizon. Alien ships descended from the clouds, casting blue light across the palace spires. Lyra grabbed his arm. "There's a way out through the lower hangars." "Follow me!" They raced through the corridors, the walls shaking as blasts tore through the floors above. Every step echoed with urgency. Every turn revealed fallen guards and flickering lights. At one corner, a beam of plasma struck near them, the shockwave throwing Elias to the ground. Lyra pulled him up, her strength surprising, her eyes fierce and wild. He could see exhaustion and sorrow mixed in her face, but also something unyielding, faith. When they finally reached the hangar, the gates were sealed shut. Guarded by armored sentinels, Lyra closed her eyes, whispering a single alien word, and the crystal in Elias's hand flared like a sun. The gates burst open, and for a heartbeat, the entire sky seemed to open with them. Stars shone brighter, winds roared louder, and somewhere deep inside Elias, a fire awakened. He looked at her, voice steady. "Whatever this code is, it's awake now," Lyra nodded. "Then we fight not just for you, but for what your kind once meant to the stars." The hangar doors closed behind them as they boarded a small silver craft. Engines roared to life, and the ship shot upward into the night sky. Leaving the burning palace behind through the window, Elias saw Valara shrinking below, flames licking its towers like candles. He turned to Lyra. "Where are we going?" Her answer came with quiet determination. "To find the rest of your kind, and to remind the galaxy why they once feared humans." The stars stretched endlessly ahead. Cold and silent, Elias watched them through the cockpit window, the glow of hyperspace painting his face in blue light. Lyra sat beside him, her hands gripping the controls of the silver craft, her expression calm but heavy. The hum of the engines was the only sound between them, a quiet reminder that they were fugitives now. After hours of flight, the ship broke through a ring of asteroids, revealing a small moon hidden behind shattered debris. Lyra guided the craft down into a cavern covered in ancient metal markings. "This is an old outpost," she whispered. "My ancestors built it before the Empire was formed." The ship landed softly, dust rising around them like mist. Elias followed her out, his boots crunching against old stone and forgotten steel. Inside the cavern, lights flickered to life automatically. Ancient consoles glowed faintly, showing symbols of both human and alien design. Elias touched one of them, surprised when it responded to his hand. Lyra watched him carefully. "It knows you. It remembers your kind." He smiled slightly. "Guess history isn't as dead as they wanted it to be." But their moment of peace didn't last. A sudden tremor shook the ground beneath them, followed by the high-pitched scream of scanners locking on. Lyra's eyes widened. "They found us." Before Elias could react, beams of golden light burst from the air above, forming circular gates of energy. Within seconds, armored soldiers appeared and the royal guard, their weapons raised, their faces hidden behind mirrored helmets. "By order of the High Council," a mechanical voice declared, "you are under arrest for treason and unlawful contact with a forbidden species." Lyra stepped in front of Elias, her tone sharp. "He is not forbidden. He is chosen." The soldiers hesitated, their visors flickering with doubt. But then a taller figure stepped forward, a commander in dark crimson armor. He removed his helmet, revealing pale blue skin and eyes filled with disdain. "Your Highness," he said coldly, "your words mean nothing now. The Council has stripped you of authority." Elias clenched his fists. "You can't just—" The commander cut him off with a glare. "Silence, human! You are an infection that should have stayed buried." He raised his weapon. But Lyra moved faster, her hand lifted, glowing with blue fire, and the ground cracked under their feet. "Enough," she said, her voice trembling but powerful. "If you harm him, you'll answer to me." The commander smirked. "You are no longer a princess, Lyrathal. You are a traitor to your own blood." She hesitated, the weight of his words heavy in the air. The soldiers surrounded them, weapons humming. Elias looked at her, whispering, "Don't fight them. We'll find another way." But before they could move, another beam of light engulfed them. The world dissolved, and they were transported instantly into a vast, golden chamber, the Hall of Judgment. Lyra fell to her knees, chains of light forming around her wrists. Elias tried to run to her, but guards held him back, their grips like iron. The High Elder stood above them on a floating platform, his voice echoing, "You were warned, Princess Lyrathal, and yet you betrayed your oath." Lyra lifted her head, her eyes blazing. I followed truth, not fear. The elder ignored her and turned toward Elias. And you, human, you've awakened things that were meant to die with your kind. Elias struggled against the guards. Then maybe it's time the galaxy remembered what we were. The hall filled with murmurs, the alien nobles whispering, unsure if they should be angry or afraid. The elder raised his hand for silence. This trial will decide both your fates, he declared. The princess must choose, her crown or the life of the human she protects. The air went still. Heavy as stone, Lyra's heart pounded in her chest. She could feel every eye watching, every breath waiting for her answer. Elias shook his head slightly, whispering, Don't choose me, Lyra. Save your people. But Lyra's gaze locked on him, fierce and unyielding. My people lost their souls the day they silenced truth, she said. She rose slowly, the chains glowing brighter as her voice grew stronger. I will not serve fear, I will not let lies rule. The elder's eyes widened. Think carefully, princess, your next words will condemn you. She took a deep breath, her voice echoing through the golden hall. Then let them, because I choose him, and I choose the fire that once saved us all. Gasps filled the chamber, the nobles rising in shock. The elder slammed his staff against the floor. So be it. Your crown is forfeit. Energy surged through the chains, and Lyra cried out as light enveloped her body. Elias broke free from the guards and ran to her, catching her before she fell. The hall descended into chaos, soldiers shouting, lights flickering as power surged uncontrollably. The crystal in Elias's pocket blazed with white fire. Reacting to her pain, the entire structure trembled. Cracks forming along the floor, Lyra whispered weakly. Go, Elias. The galaxy must see the truth, promise me. He held her close, his voice breaking, I promise. Then, in one blinding flash, the chamber exploded into light, hurling everyone backward. When the dust cleared, the throne was empty, and Lyra and Elias were gone. The council's hall lay in ruins, and above the shattered dome, the stars burned brighter than ever before. Somewhere out there in the endless dark, the fire of humanity had begun to rise again. Darkness swallowed the sky as the wreckage of the council chamber faded into the void. The teleport burst had thrown Elias and Lyra far from Valara Prime. They appeared inside an ancient escape vessel drifting between stars. Silent and forgotten, the floor was cold metal, the air thin, and the lights flickered weakly. Elias woke first, gasping, his vision blurry, the hum of distant engines vibrating through his bones. He turned and saw Lyra lying nearby, her body weak, the faint glow around her fading like dying embers. He crawled to her side, shaking her gently. Lyra, wake up. Her eyes fluttered open, the violet light returning slowly. For a moment she looked confused. Then her lips curved into a faint smile. You kept your promise, she whispered. Her voice soft but alive. Elias helped her sit up, scanning the small ship around them. The cockpit was old, built with a mix of human and alien design. Strange symbols glowed across the panels, and one phrase appeared in Old Terran language. Arc 7, Project Fireseed. He stared at it in disbelief. This is human technology, Lyra nodded weakly. Your ancestors built this vessel, long before my empire existed. She placed her hand on the console, and the ship responded, screens flickering to life. A projection appeared, a man with familiar features, sharp eyes, and the same surname. Elias froze as the hologram spoke. If you're seeing this, the flame of Earth still burns within you. It was Admiral Arden Ward, the man from the memory, his voice calm but filled with purpose. Humanity's fall was not the end. It was the beginning of something greater. Lyra watched silently as the hologram continued. Hidden across the stars are the arcs, vessels carrying fragments of humanity's code, waiting for the day they awaken again. Elias felt his chest tighten. He knew this would happen, he planned it. The image of the Admiral smiled faintly. To whoever carries the fire now, remember, humanity is not defined by strength but by choice. Then the projection faded, leaving behind a soft hum of the ship's engines. Elias turned to Lyra. This ship, it's one of the arcs. Maybe it can lead us to others. Lyra nodded slowly. Then our path is clear. We must find them before the council does. But before they could reactivate the navigation system, alarms blared through the ship. A red light flashed across the cockpit, and the radar filled with moving dots. Lyra's expression darkened. They've found us, outside. A fleet of Valoran warships descended from hyperspace, their black hulls glowing with golden runes. Dozens of hunter drones surrounded the Ark like vultures circling prey. Elias gripped the controls, his voice steady but tense. "I've flown shuttles before, not starships." Lyra placed her hand over his, her touch calming. "Then trust the ship. It knows your blood," the Ark responded instantly, engines roaring as it shot forward with impossible speed. The chase began, streaks of plasma cutting across the dark. Explosions lighting the emptiness. Elias maneuvered through asteroid fields, guided by instinct more than skill. The crystal around his neck pulsed with every turn, warning him before danger came. Lyra focused her energy, forming shimmering barriers around the hull, deflecting blasts, but the enemy fleet was relentless, their leader broadcasting a cold voice across the comms. "Princess Lyrathal, surrender the human and the artifact, and your life will be spared." Lyra's eyes burned with fury. "Tell them the fire of humanity will never bow." She raised her hand, and energy erupted from the Ark's core, releasing a blinding wave that tore through the drones. The ship shuddered, warning lights flashing, but they were still alive. Elias looked at her in shock. "What did you just do?" She smiled faintly, though her voice trembled. "I used the link between us. The code within you fuels this vessel. It recognizes us as one." Elias blinked, confused. "You mean, it needs both of us to work?" Lyra nodded. "Human and Valoran, fire and light. Only together can it awaken fully." The words felt like more than prophecy. They felt like truth written into their souls. The Ark streaked through the last of the enemy blockade, diving into a wormhole that opened before them like a glowing storm. Inside the tunnel of stars, everything slowed. Time stretching into silence. Elias looked at Lyra, her face illuminated by the soft glow of hyperspace. For a moment, neither spoke, the chaos fading into calm. Then she whispered, "Do you ever wonder why I chose you?" Elias turned to her, his voice quiet. "Because of what I carry." She shook her head gently. "No, I chose you before I ever knew the fire lived in you." Her eyes softened, shimmering with emotion. "I dreamed of a man who stood between light and darkness, unafraid to look at me, unafraid to reach across the line that divides our worlds." Elias felt his chest tighten, unsure how to respond. "I didn't believe in fate," he said slowly, "until the day you sat beside me." Lyra smiled, her gaze tender. "Then let fate burn with us." The wormhole spat them out into a new sector of space. Ahead floated a massive ring-shaped station, dormant but glowing faintly with human markings on its surface. The same words shone, "Ark 2, the dawn of fire." Lyra looked at it with awe. "Another Ark, another piece of your lost people." Elias leaned forward, determination lighting his eyes. "Then let's wake them up." Behind them, the wormhole collapsed, hiding their trail from the pursuing fleet. The Ark drifted quietly toward the ancient station, two lights against the endless black. The galaxy slept unaware that the old fire was returning, and for the first time in centuries, humanity's spark had found a new heart to keep it alive. A human and an alien, bound by choice, carrying the memory of fire through the stars. The silent Ark drifted toward the colossal ring-shaped station, stars reflected on its metallic surface like frozen fire. Elias and Lyra stood at the viewport, watching in awe as the ancient structure slowly came to life. Faint blue lights ran through its veins, illuminating the words that had been asleep for millennia. "Ark 2, the dawn of fire." The ship's console began to hum with a deeper tone. Old systems woke one by one, responding to Elias's heartbeat. The hologram of Admiral Arden Ward flickered again. This time clearer, more alive, his voice echoed softly. "To those who carry the fire, the time has come." Lyra felt the floor tremble beneath her feet, her pulse matching the rhythm of the ship's awakening. Elias reached forward, placing his hand on the console. The Ark recognized his DNA and projected thousands of holographic symbols around him. Lyra stepped closer, whispering, "It's calling to you." He nodded slowly. "It's calling to us." Together they stood within the circle of light, and the ancient human code responded. The station began to unfold, massive panels opening like the petals of a sleeping flower. Hidden beneath its surface, hundreds of smaller ships detached from their docks. Each one carried the mark of old Earth, the symbol of the burning hand. Elias stared in disbelief. "These are human warships, untouched for centuries." Lyra's eyes widened. "They were waiting for you." Suddenly, The Ark's communication system crackled with static. A voice came through, faint but unmistakably human. "This is Captain Asha Wren of the Lost Colony," it said. "Identify yourself," Elias's heart raced. "This is Elias Ward of Earth's bloodline. We've reactivated the Dawn of Fire." The voice paused, trembling with emotion. "After all these years, humanity returns," Lyra smiled softly, her eyes shimmering. "You've awakened your people." "Elias?" But before the joy could settle, alarms blared once more. Dozens of red blips appeared on the radar. The Valaran fleet had tracked them through subspace. Lyra's smile faded. "They're here to destroy the Arks before they awaken fully." Elias clenched his fists, determination burning in his gaze. "Then we'll show them why they should have left humanity sleeping." The first wave of Valaran cruisers dropped from hyperspace, their cannons igniting. The void erupted with beams of blue energy. Streaking toward the station, Elias ran to the control seat, activating the human fleet's defense systems. "Come on, old giants, wake up," he muttered under his breath. Lyra placed her hand on the power conduit, lending her energy through the ship's core. The fleet responded, massive engines flared to life, lighting the dark like a second sunrise. Hundreds of human warships formed ranks, ancient designs reborn under new hands. The first volley of plasma fire roared out, slicing through the enemy lines. The sky became a storm of light and shadow. Metal and flame, Lyra watched the chaos unfold, her voice calm amid the thunder. They never expected the past to fight back. Elias smiled faintly. "The past doesn't fight, it remembers." He pulled the control lever, directing the flagship's cannons toward the Valaran command ship. The human fleet followed his command as if recognizing its own leader. Lyra turned toward him, awe in her eyes. "They obey you as if you were him," Elias frowned. "Who?" "Admiral Arden Ward," she said softly. "The man who carried your blood in your fire." He didn't answer. But deep inside something stirred. Memories that weren't his. Voices whispering through time. The ship trembled as another explosion shook the hull, but he didn't waver. He felt the Admiral's courage echo through his veins, guiding him like an old song. Humanity's fire, Elias said under his breath, was never meant to burn alone. He looked at Lyra, her glow now bright, fierce, alive. Together they stood side by side, commanding the reborn fleet. One human heart and one alien soul rewriting the story of the stars. Their unity sent shockwaves through both species, through the galaxy itself. When the final Valaran cruiser fell, silence returned to the void. The battlefield was lit by the remains of light and hope. Elias slumped back in his seat, exhausted but smiling. Lyra looked out the window at the thousands of human ships floating free. Her voice trembled. "The galaxy will remember this day." Elias turned to her. "It's not about war, Lyra, it's about being remembered." She nodded. "And choosing mercy when we could choose destruction." He smiled. That's the fire he spoke of. Not the kind that burns worlds, but the kind that keeps them alive outside. The human fleet began to spread across the stars, forming signals of light visible from entire sectors, a message older than any empire. "We have returned." Lyra took his hand, her eyes soft. "So what happens now, Elias Ward?" He looked toward the glowing horizon, his reflection mixing with hers in the glass. "Now," he said quietly, "we show them what it means to be human again." The stars burned brighter. The fleet's engines roared and the universe itself seemed to awaken. For the first time in 10,000 years, humanity stood among the stars not as ghosts but as a promise reborn. And beside the last human of Earth stood the alien who had chosen him. Together they carried the memory of fire into a new dawn. The legend of mankind's return began not with a war, but with a choice to remember, to rise, and to love. And as their ship vanished into the endless glow, the galaxy whispered their names like an ancient song reborn. Elias Ward and Lyrathal, the flame and the light, the heart and the crown, the beginning of humanity's second age.